All right, Thursday night Krug show. Look who's in the house. Sterling Bennett is here. We got a lot to talk about. The Niners have made a trade and they've added to their defensive line a couple of pieces. Is it enough? Is it enough? We'll talk a little bit about the matchup. The Niners headed to New York to take on the Giants on Sunday, and we're going to get to it right here, right now. Brought to you by Pig and a Pickle. Let's go. There we go. Welcome to the Krug Show. Thursday night, Sterling Bennett is in the house. We got a lot to get to. 49ers getting ready to take a cross-country flight and head out to New York to take on the Giants at MetLife on Sunday in New Jersey. Welcome to the Krug Show, brought to you by Pig and a Pickle. The best barbecue in all of Northern California is Pig and a Pickle. Check them out. They're in Emeryville. They're in Corte Madera. They're open 7 days a week from 11 a.m. till 8 p.m. or until they run out. And they do run out. So get there early, get some brisket chili. Tell them that Krug sent you. Sterling, how are you, man? Good to see you.
I'm doing fantastic. Eagerly awaiting how San Francisco's health looks after this game at MetLife Stadium. But also, it's a must-win game. So very much looking forward to Sunday.
Well, it says 49ers defense revived. Will new faces be enough versus Jaxson Dart and the New York Giants? The 49ers defense last week was horrendous.
Yeah.
They were going up against a really bad Houston team that had offensively that just had been dominated 6 days earlier by the Seattle Seahawks. And instead of dominating them, they allowed CJ Stroud to establish a rhythm. They played the softest coverages you're ever going to find. They just kept backing up. They created so much space.
Yeah.
And they had put no pass rush at all on Stroud. And Stroud, who the week before really couldn't complete any passes, completed 46%, completed 23 of 28 in the first half against the 49ers. And by the time the Niners, adjusted in any way, the game was over. The Niners offense got dominated by Houston's defense, but the Niners defense is I think, the topic here, because without Warner, without Bosa, and without Huff, they had nothing. They had absolutely nothing. And we had seen them look good the week before against Atlanta, and then they come out against Houston, and Houston's got a quarterback that's struggling, a bad offensive line, rookie at running back, rookies at receiver, and they had long extended drives, and when they weren't having long extended drives, they were moving the ball down the field with gigantic chunk yardage plays off coverage busts.
Right.
And the 49er defense did both. They got dominated play after play after play, and Houston dominated the time of possession, and they got dominated in Houston had a bunch of busts, and the 49ers couldn't even hang with Woody Marks or Jaden Higgins or Jalen Noel, and they made those guys look really, really good. So now the question is, can you trade for Keon White, add Cleve Farrell, and suddenly everything's right with the world? Or are the Niners, on the defensive side of the ball, going to be compromised again this Sunday in New York or New Jersey?
I think it has to be better. It can't really get much worse than it did against the Houston Texans. It also helps that the Giants offense, although the Texans offense isn't great, I don't think the Giants are as equally equipped to maybe bust out of a slump performance, or at least play 4 complete quarters. They haven't done so yet this season. But I think the Niners have done enough to field a defense this Sunday. I don't know if it's enough to help push their pass rush to the playoffs or give them a vaunted front seven again. They certainly still have some holes. I do love the fact, though, that Robert Saleh said today in his press conference that I have to be better. And I think that is a big weight on his shoulders. It already was coming into the season, but now that no Fred Warner, no Bryce Huff for it seems like one more week, no Nick Bosa, the pressure's on Saleh and company out there as a coaching staff to help put these young guys in the right spot. But ultimately, I think San Francisco's defense The linebackers have to be more patient. You saw too many guys running around, really having no idea where they were going. There was a play against the Houston Texans where Tatum Bethune, their linebacker, who's replacing Fred Warner, has a running back lined up right across from him with the defensive line and the offensive line engaged in between them. And instead of waiting to see where the running back goes, he evades his hole, evades his lane, slams right into the back of his defensive lineman, and gives the running back room to run. You can't do that. So I do think that they have to be more patient, but also I think communication, that's the problem. The pass rush could be as bad as it was against the Houston Texans, but if you have better communication on the back end, I think you will see an improved defense. But man, it's really hard to not at least hope San Francisco's defense plays better, because if they don't, we're having more questions further beyond week 9 about, can this defense actually be good enough to even go to the playoffs at all?
Yeah, I mean, it's, can the 49ers go to the playoffs without an additional trade?
Yeah.
I mean, that's the question I would throw out, and I would say no. I because there's enough games left, and their situation right now, last week was just dire. I mean, they made a bad offense look really good. So what's going to happen when they face a mediocre offense? What's going to happen when they face a pretty good offense? What's going to happen when they face a very good offense? Are they just someone's going to hang half 100 on them?
Well,
are they just going
to ends in 2 weeks, so we might see it pretty soon.
What's that?
Week 10 against the Rams is pretty soon, so we might see it.
Exactly. I mean, do you think the 49ers are a playoff team as is, without help, or do you think that they need help to go to the playoffs?
I think they're getting a lot of guys back from IR that can help them. If Ben Barch or Spencer Burford are playing left guard, it certainly is better than Connor Colby. I think Ricky Pearsall comes back against the Rams. Maybe you get your receiver room going a bit. That said, San Francisco's 5-3. They have to win probably 5 more games to be 10-7 when it's all said and done. I think they can win at least 4 of them. Panthers, Giants, Cardinals, Titans. Can you win a 5th game?
Not to interrupt you, but for whatever reason, you're lagging pretty good here. Am I lagging it to you? Or are you lagging to me?
We're doing the head bob now.
You were like your lips and your words were off. I don't know if you want to pop out and pop back in. I don't know if it's like you just froze right there.
Am I good? Am I good now?
Yeah, I think you're good now. I think you're good.
Okay. The Wi-Fi is always tricky.
Okay, let's hit the quarterback discussion, because now, so the 49ers are challenged on defense. There's no question.
Yeah.
I asked Kubiak today, I said, who's going to start at quarterback? And, he's like, well, Brock's looking better. And that's what he said. That was the first thing he said.
Heard that for 5 weeks.
Yeah. And it's like, so, but then the other indication of who's going to be the starting quarterback is what quarterback talks to the media today. Mm-hmm. And Brock's been listed as limited at practice, and they brought out Mac Jones to talk to the media. So isn't Mac Jones starting this game? I mean, and I don't know where you are on this, Sterling, but how do you see this as far as, how the 49ers should play their hand of cards? Because, I don't know how you feel about it. In my opinion, I think when I look at the way the schedule has played out and what's ahead, you have 5 games between now and the bye week. And so he's not going to play this week against the Giants.
Right.
So he's trying to get back. But, I mean, personally, if he's not ready this week, and doesn't look like it, are you bringing him back next week against the Rams? And maybe you are, maybe you aren't. If you win, does that change anything? You do have that week 14 bye. If it was me, I mean, when you look at the way the this whole turf toe thing has gone so far, as far as the recurrence after he played in Jacksonville in week 4, and he hasn't played since. So he played week 1 and week 2, or he played week 1, and then he was off for 2 weeks. And they said, we need 2 to 6 weeks to heal. And he took 2 weeks off, not 6. Mm-hmm. Then he came back. He played 1 game against Jacksonville. And then he's now missed Los Angeles, Tampa, Atlanta, Houston, and this would be the 5th game if he misses this game. I would say he should based on the doctors that I've talked to, and I don't know that much. I don't know that much more than anybody else, but the doctors I talked to said, 2 to 6 weeks. And if you really want it to go away, maybe more like 2 to 8 weeks. So 2 to 6 weeks would be, he's already missed Los Angeles, Tampa, Atlanta, Houston, New York would be 5. Rams would be 6. Arizona would be 7. Carolina would be 8. If it really, if it's in that range, basically sometime in November.
Yeah.
I think if I were them, I would hold them out through the bye week, and then just you play Rams, Cardinals, Carolina, and Cleveland. You got in the next after the Giants, so you got 5 games left: Giants, Rams, Cardinals, Panthers, Browns. I think you could probably go with Mac Jones probably at 4-1, maybe 3-2, but I think 4-1 is definitely possible there.
Yeah, I think San Francisco has to win at least 5 more games if they want to go to the playoffs. Now, maybe that's, changes and other NFC teams fall apart and San Francisco gets lucky, but I think they have to win games against the Giants, the Panthers, the Titans, and the Cardinals, and then you have that 5th game maybe against the Bears or maybe Seattle week 18. That is a game you can be victorious in, but that extra 5th game, that one final game, I think will come down to if San Francisco go to the playoff or not. But with Brock, he's not playing on Sunday against the Giants. I wouldn't even risk Brock playing if he thought he could play against the Giants, knowing the turf out there. They can say they don't care about it, but as a fan, I certainly do. And I think for longevity's sake, I don't think we will see Brock Purdy at least until week number 11. I do wonder, though, is holding Brock out till after the bye week, although maybe best for his own health. Is that too late to bring him back and hope he can get back into kind of the form of things and be himself once again? Or will he need a couple, games of rust or a half a rust to kind of work things off? And, I think that's why maybe playing Brock before the bye week or leading into the bye week would probably be maybe the better decision. Kind of you can reassess how he feels during the bye week. And if he feels hurt again, then he's done for the season. And if he feels great, then you're in a good spot because now you're getting extra rest. So I think I would rather have Brock return maybe week 12 against the Panthers at home, Monday Night Football, win that game hopefully, and then go on for the rest of the season. But I think Brock's return really shouldn't come until after the Rams game. I think Mac Jones should be the quarterback for at least the next 2 weeks. Give Brock the full 5 to 6 weeks off and see where he's at then. I'm tired of hearing he's getting better. Okay, well, that's fine, but is he fully healthy? That's what I'm concerned about. I don't care how he looks in practice, being limited and maybe being somewhat, I guess you could say, maybe tentative in his throws or with the injured foot still. So I think Brock doesn't come back until week 11 at the earliest and week 12 at the latest, in my opinion.
My whole thing is when he's back, I want him to play the rest of the year.
Yeah.
I don't want him to play. I don't want him to be back for a game. The Niners don't need him back for a game. They need him back for a run.
Right.
So to me, be as conservative as you can be, which would be I definitely would hold him out this week and next week if I could. And so that would be, that would be your 6 games. That would be your 6 weeks. And now you're just about Arizona would be 7, Carolina would be 8, Cleveland would be 9. I mean, the doctor that I talked to about this, the orthopedic surgeon, said, hey, look, some people it's a 2-week thing. Other people it's like a 6-week thing. If you want to make sure it's an easy injury to have a recurrence of. And he's like, if you really want to make sure, that, you got to give it extended rest. So you may want to give it a couple extra weeks. So that to me says 8 weeks. So, I mean, if you gave him 8 weeks from the Jacksonville game, that's Rams, Tampa, Atlanta, Houston, New York, Rams, Cardinals, Carolina would be the 8th week. So I'm so tired of the recurrence and the possibility of the recurrence that I just would rather say, you know what, hold him off through the bye week, bust him out in mid-December. At that point, I think what do you got left at that point? You got 4 regular season games and you have potentially 3 playoff games.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, if you've given him, to me, like if you're the 49ers, I think the Niners made a terrible mistake bringing him back against Jacksonville. It was a terrible error.
Correct.
And it
malpractice.
Set him back dramatically. So now I want to be extra, extra careful. And my whole thing is, if the Niners waited with Brock Purdy and went with Mac Jones through the week 14 bye, did not play Mac Jones at all until week 15, or didn't play Brock Purdy at all again until week 15. I think at that point, they have done everything in their power to give him the proper amount of rest. And then if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But it's not their fault. It's not, if you bring him back this week, I mean, I saw some talk that, the Niners, Lynch and Shanahan, when asked with, hey, would you consider not bringing him back this week since MetLife is the league's worst surface? It's an AstroTurf field. It's considered treacherous, blah, blah, blah. Both guys were like, nah. It's like, what?
Yeah.
Why? So, so that's a non-factor. So that's a very cavalier type approach to this. I personally would say, hey, look, I'm tired of being in, I don't want to be judged on this. So let's give it, if they say give it this much time, give it that much time. If they say give it 6 weeks, let's give it 9 weeks. Most teams couldn't do that and win games, but you might be able to do that with Mac Jones and win games. And then you could get Brock Purdy back. In my scenario, Brock Purdy
can they though?
Back onto the field in December 14th, and he's got 4 games, the Indy game should be tough. But 4 games that shouldn't be too tough, and then you've got a playoff run. And I think if he has a recurrence, then the Giants are not, or the Giants. I'm watching a Giants commercial. Willie Adamas just hit one out. The Niners are not to blame. The Niners would not be to blame if they held him out until after the bye week, and then somehow he got back on the field between week 15 and 18, and then had a recurrence of the injury. Then it's fate. It's the way it is. It's the season. It's like there's nothing you can do. But I got to take myself, if I'm the 49ers, out of the firing squad. I can't sit there, put this guy back on the field before he's healed again, and then, because then you're still going to lose him for the year, but you're going to lose him for the year, and you're going to play him 1 game in week 4, and then another game in, week 10 or something like that, and then that's it for the year. I mean, that's not a lot out of your starting quarterback.
Do you think that the Niners, for as banged up as their defense is, for as bad as their pass rush was against the Houston Texans, and might be until Bryce Huff gets back, and even then is not going to be as good as it once was to begin the season, and knowing this roster, more guys are going to get hurt and more guys are going to come back healthy, and it'll be kind of a hodgepodge, if you will, of what this current defense looks like and can be in the future, and how bad for the linebackers played and everything. I don't know if San Francisco can really afford to let Brock sit out. Now, I am with you in regards to giving Brock in a very accurate, consistent timeline to getting healthy. My concern is that this Mac Jones offense, and it's not all Mac Jones's fault. I thought Mac Jones was actually pretty good against the Houston Texans, minus maybe not targeting CMC enough. But they're scoring under 20 points the last 3 weeks. And that's what the great game against the Falcons, which obviously certain games are dictated by what the opposing team can do to you. But this offense has only scored, I think, over 20 points 3 times this season. that's not good enough. And I know you're playing bad teams down the stretch, and the hope would be that once Purdy comes back, that whether it's week 11, 12, he can maybe give you a more explosive offense. You'll have Pearsall back in maybe a week's time, and maybe the offense gets rolling. I just think there's such a hard ceiling to what Mac Jones offers as a quarterback. While there's been so much good, there's been winning, where if this was A.G. Martinez, you probably would be winless this year so far, had it not been for Brock's heroic effort in week 1 against the Seattle Seahawks. But I don't know if San Francisco can afford to have an offense that's averaging under 20 points a game and expect to go to the playoffs with this current iteration of their defense. That's my concern. And yeah, the schedule is relatively easy, but if the offense only puts up 17 to 20 points per game, they're not going to go to the playoffs. This defense is not good enough to hold teams to under 20 points a game for the next 9 to 8 weeks or so. They can't do it. And I think that's why San Francisco wants to bring Brock back, and I think that's why they want to bring him back against the Rams, the Cardinals, the Panthers, somewhere before the bye week. Give them maybe, instead of 4 games, 6 games with Brock Purdy, which could set them up for maybe a 6-4 record, 6-5 record, and say, hey, Brock, can you win 4 more games for us and score over 20 points a game? I think the offense has to be the focal point of their winning now, because the defense is so banged up, and I'm not sure Mac Jones at quarterback can do that, where Brock, I at least have more hope that he can score over 20 points a game with the iteration of the offense you currently have.
Either quarterback is likely to struggle if they can't get good pass protection.
Yes,
I think
100%.
We would agree with that. I mean, that's something we're in lockstep on. Let me share the screen, because I thought this was one of the most biting Brian Baldinger breakdowns I've seen in a long time. Did you see this? I don't know if you saw this, but this is Baldy breaking down the Niners offensive line, and he's just crushing Shanahan right here. Listen to this.
I will never understand this protection, especially in Houston with that animal out there, Will Anderson. How can you pull Hennessy right here to block Will Anderson? Like, your quarterback is going to get crushed. Like, watch this guy take off. Like, look at McKivitz right here. Like, he's already turned. It's over. Like, when you see your tackle turned like that, it's over. He's going to get to your quarterback, and he does. Affects the throw. Now, you got some kind of, like, this is just a disconnect here. Togiai comes free. All right, they turn him loose right here. All right, Mac is, like, just under duress right now. All right, now, you can't do this. You cannot ask Jawan Jennings to block Danielle Hunter. You can't in this open space right here. Like, and Mac Jones, like, this guy's got 104 career sacks. Like, you can't do this. All right? That's what's going to happen. All right, now, you can't hear. You can't hear in Houston. It's 3rd down and 3. Like, you look at this right here, and look at how wide Will Anderson is. No help, short edge, and your quarterback is getting crushed. Like, you got to understand, like, this is Danielle Hunter, and this is Will Anderson. They need the win. They're at home. It's Texas. Like, even when you chip these guys, they still get to your quarterback. Like, I thought these guys are difference makers. You got to treat and protect your quarterback better than the 49ers did on Sunday.
Yeah. Will Anderson and Danielle Hunter, you knew were going to be tough, but
yeah,
it's really tough if you're pulling the center across the formation, trying to pick him off at an odd angle. It's really tough if you're asking Jawan Jennings, who's on the outside of Danielle Hunter, how's he supposed to block Danielle Hunter and keep Mac Jones free when Hunter is standing between him and Jones? I mean, it's like, what? I mean, I asked Kubiak today about this. I'm like, did you feel like your pass protection was sound? Did you feel like you gave McKivitz enough help? And he's like, well, we chipped at times and this and that. and then I'm like, okay, but then what about the other play where you're pulling the center across the formation? And he's like, that's a protection that we use often. Well, maybe you shouldn't. Asking a center to block a defensive end and to shoot out across the formation to do it, it just, just seems problematic. I mean,
that's also your backup center, not your starting center, and
your backup center.
And that's you're facing the first and fourth ranked pass rushers in football. You're not facing, some Joe Blow from, I don't know, the Saints. It's not Carl Granderson or a 35-year-old Cam Jordan. It's the two top guys in football.
And you're talking about the number one defense in the league too. You're talking about a defense that's giving up 14 points a game. So, and you're asking your backup center making his first start to block Will Anderson off the edge from his center spot. I mean, Baldy was ripping it, but is this at its core one of the issues that Shanahan has had? Is that he's a great play caller, he's a great play sequencer, but maybe he's not great at devising protections, and maybe that is one of the issues. I mean, the Niners lost the Super Bowl because of a blown up play, because of a defensive line that was too much for the Niners offensive line, and the play blew up at the wrong time. It just seems like teams. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm not an offensive line coach, but that Baldy seemed like he had a point there.
Yeah, I think the Niners have always valued smaller offensive linemen that can get out and pull quicker guys that maybe aren't these, gigantic humans that usually run, the gap power run scheme, which Philadelphia runs a lot. San Francisco wants agile, smaller tackles and smaller guards. And sometimes when you're, facing guys like Will Anderson, Danielle Hunter, freaks that are just superior athletes, you're likely going to lose. McKivitz has lost to Chris Jones when he's playing on the edge at times, and Karlaftis, who are stronger guys out there. And, for as good as McKivitz has been this year, I think it was always abundantly clear that this was a game he was going to struggle. This was a game where 36-year-old Trent Williams was probably going to have at least some blunders. That's okay. That's expected, but it's up to your head coach, up to your offensive line coach to help put those guys in a position to succeed. And I don't think either coach, whether it be Shanahan or Saleh, put the offense or defense in a place to succeed on Sunday against the Texans. And, you think about this Sunday against Kayvon Thibodeaux, Abdul Carter, Brian Burns. Brian Burns has 9 sacks this year. That's 4th in football. It's not like, while maybe it gets a little easier, now there's 3 of those guys instead of 2 of those guys. And so it's not as if, you're playing maybe a worse defense, especially against the run, but against the pass, they got 3 guys that can get after you really quick, and all those guys play at the exact same time as well. So I think I'm hoping Houston's game, the loss, the way they lost, was a go back to the drawing board and say, hey, we got to change some stuff and figure things out, because we cannot leave our backup center or Colton McKivitz against one of the best top pass rushers in football alone without guys getting chipped, or without having Kittle be the 6th offensive lineman for a play. If your quarterback can stay upright, you can find guys open in this offense, but they had a really hard time against Houston doing that, and I hope that changes against the Giants this Sunday, though.
It better. It better. John Lynch went on the KNBR morning show today and said that the Niners, he was asked the question, hey, you guys still in the market for an edge rusher? Or you guys still looking to make trades? And what's your mindset going into the trade deadline? And Lynch said, hey, we're open-minded to making trade additions. But then he goes on and says, hey, look, we really don't want to trade. We don't want to trade our 26 draft capital. We really don't want to. We want to retain. We want to keep our draft for 2026. I think they have 4 fourth-round picks and a 7th on day 3. And then, of course, picks in the first 3 rounds as well. So they don't want to. He says, we don't want to, diminish our 26 draft class. And we want to make sure that if we add someone, it's somebody who's under contract for 2025 and 2026. So no pending free agents. So when you hear that, I mean, it almost sounds like they're like, nah, we could, but nah, we're not going to. We don't want to trade a 2. We don't want to trade a 3. we don't want to trade for a Hendrickson. He's a free agent. I think they will probably make one more addition somehow, but I think it's going to be kind of along the lines of Keon White, some player that they kind of like, that they think they might be able to get something out of, where they can move a pick and get another pick, or maybe move a 2027 pick. I just, when I heard that today, I thought, they're not doing anything. They're not doing anything major because they don't want anybody who's a pending free agent. They want to make sure they have somebody who's under contract for this year, next year. I would imagine when you get players like that, you're probably going to have to pay a little bit. You would think that's not the case in Keon White's situation, but White fell out of favor in New England. I just don't think. I think White more than anything just didn't fit their scheme. Keon White is a jumbo defensive end who can moonlight as a tackle from time to time in certain pass rush packages. But the Patriots have a 3-4 defense, and their 3 down linemen are all 3 two-gappers, and then their rushers are outside linebackers who rush out of a 2-point stance. And Keon White is neither. He's neither the 2-point stance outside linebacker in a 3-4, nor is he a two-gapper, control. He's not one of those 320-pound two-gappers either. So even though he's 285 and pretty intriguing, can play inside and outside, he doesn't really fit the 34 down lineman or the 34 outside backer. So I just think he's not a scheme fit there, but I think he is a scheme fit here. I think it's kind of win-win. That New England didn't want him, didn't need him, and the Niners want him and need him.
Yeah, I think Keon White, I think it's a really nice pickup. Obviously, he has to go out there and prove it, but I do think that it helps San Francisco on 2 fronts. One, it helps them this year. Keon White had 5 sacks 2 years ago, playing in a scheme that actually fit his play style. If you go back to the math of it all, in 2024, albeit it was San Francisco's terrible defense, but some of those guys are still here and playing pretty good football. Samuel Kawano's a nice depth piece. Yetur Gross-Matos was, pre-injury, one of the best interior pass rushers in football. Keon White had a better pass rush win rate than everybody on San Francisco's defense, not named Nick Bosa last season. So there is a big reason as to why they value him. Obviously, now getting in San Francisco, solid defense. He can play inside, he can play outside. He has some length to him. He has some size to him. I think it's a good pickup and under contract for next year, whereas Yetur Gross-Matos probably out the door if he can maintain his health the next, 8 weeks or so. Keon White probably slides into his role in next year's roster. That said, the way I understood John Lynch's comments weren't necessarily that they wouldn't be open to trading draft capital this year. It's more so if they do, they have to make sure the guys on the roster beyond this season. I think
there's no Hendrickson.
Right. So, and I never thought that was the case. I know there's been reports out there saying they're all in on him and they're expressing interest. Sure, that's great and all. You can call whoever you want to. It doesn't mean a deal's going to happen. I think people that believe that it will have him sign an extension when he gets here. San Francisco is not signing another edge rusher to a $35+ million deal contract after giving up probably a 2nd-round draft pick for him. But I think maybe guys like a rental in Arden Key's case, who's probably pretty cheap, albeit the Titans seemingly want something relatively high for him, probably a 4th or 5th round draft pick. They'll probably say no to, but I think Jermaine Johnson's on the table still. I don't know if the Jets are willing to deal, but I think 2 years of control left, young guy, no solid, can play inside, can play outside. I do think of the guys on the potential trade market, that to me is probably who San Francisco's trying to acquire the most, but the Jets have to play some ball here. I also think that they do, and it would probably help them a ton if CJ West is not going to play much, being inactive against the Houston Texans. They have some injuries there. Having Michael play inside more on early downs would be really beneficial, especially if you can get Jermaine Johnson and Keon White. I think that may be a way San Francisco, they kind of duct tape their defensive line to end the season going in 2026.
I love Jermaine Johnson. He's coming off a major injury, but he's a real talented guy. He's good against the run. He's good against the pass. He's kind of a badass. Like, I really do like him quite a bit. But you know what? I kind of think the better fit is Will McDonald. Because I think
Sure.
if you like the Niners needed two pieces. They needed that interior piece that can be inside, outside, do whatever. That's Keon. And then they need an edge rusher. They need somebody who can burn the edge. And to me, it's like I realize they like guys who are more like 265, 270.
Yeah.
But what they really miss is they miss that speed off the edge that Bryce Huff possessed. And, because that will move the quarterback. I think Will McDonald is a lot like Bryce Huff. He's 245 pounds. He's got spin moves. He's super athletic.
Yeah.
And I just think that if you could get Will McDonald, he would give you the speed rusher that you lack. And then Keon and Cleve Farrell will give you those extra bodies that you need to kind of play games inside and be versatile. So I would like Will McDonald, but I'd be fine with either. Jermaine Johnson would be great as well. Hey, Jalen Phillips would be great.
The
Dolphins
Phillips Phillips is what, a 1-year rental, I think. I think McDonald's under contract for the rest of this year.
Agent,
and then
Phillips is a free agent.
And then McDonald's under contract through 2027, I believe, which probably means the asking price is really high. Probably a first-round draft pick, if not a high-end second-round draft pick, which I do think if you are the Niners, you talked about it plenty of times with me and others, I'm sure, that those first two picks are earmarked for offensive linemen or at least off the table. I do think that might be a reason why San Francisco would rather get a guy like Jermaine Johnson, somebody that has less control. The Jets may be more inclined to get rid of, or even other teams might be more inclined to kind of get rid of guys like that. And I do believe that I don't think San Francisco's done. I think they're going to try to make one more deal if they can. We'll see how things work out. But I also don't know if you go get Will McDonald, and let's say it's for a second-round draft pick or something like that, and then you have Bryce Huff on the roster. Are you willing to say goodbye to Bryce Huff in the offseason because you have McDonald? Or are you bringing back Bosa, McDonald, Huff, and having maybe some redundancy in those two guys that probably play the exact same role for you in 2026? Or do you not care and say the more the merrier?
Yeah, I think the more the merrier. I think you want to get, run guys, get as many athletes as you possibly can on your front, and just these guys go down. But yeah, I mean, I like the idea of having one more speed element off the edge, because I think I was so impressed by what Bryce Huff was able to do. And if you could have another player like that, man, that would really be nice. That would really be nice. All right, let's talk about some individual players. Supposedly Spencer Burford is trying to make his way back. They may call him off IR. Ben Barch has been limited the last 2 days of practice. He may get called back, and they'd like Ben Barch to step in for Connor Colby. What do you think? You think this is the week we see Barch and Colby gets pushed back to the bench? Or do you think, Burford is, gets activated? Today was a weird day too. Yesterday, they cut Brandon Parker and added Andre Dillard. Today, they cut Andre Dillard and added Brandon Parker back. What do you make of that?
I don't know, honestly. The way they made it sound was that Dillard would probably be maybe the backup tackle, and Burford probably slides into left guard. That kind of seemed what I was getting from that, or at least maybe in some sort, give them more depth at tackle, at least because Burford will probably be playing left guard.
But they waived Dillard.
Right, but then, which is why I was confused, because I was like, okay, you brought Dillard in, who has, right tackle experience, played left tackle before, I think, in Philadelphia, but then you cut him. I don't know if he wasn't healthy. I don't know if he failed a physical. I don't know if it was confusing. I don't know what that was dictated by. Right.
I think they were. Shanahan told us yesterday they were waiting for Dillard.
Yeah.
So they had Dillard in camp. They cut him, and I think they just think he's a better pass protector than Pleasance or any of their other options at backup offensive tackle.
Right.
But then I think Dillard probably just can't get right physically. And he keeps telling them, I'm right, I'm fine, I'm good. I mean, he only practiced 2 days this summer, and then they cut him loose. And then now they activate him for 1 day, and they cut him loose. By the way, the Niners also today lost an offensive lineman, as the Tennessee Titans claimed former Niner Drew Moss off waivers. And this was another, mistake, I think. It's like you're You lost a good young interior offensive line prospect, in a numbers game, and you've got other guys there that probably don't have as much of a future as this guy who, that you prioritize keeping over him. So I didn't love the fact that they lost Moss to the Titans. I thought that seemed like very, very preventable.
The Moss departure to me gave me more confidence that either Burford or Barch is returning on Sunday, that they were okay losing a guard. And you have Zakello who can be your backup center if Hennessy goes down or in case, Brendel doesn't come back right. Now, of course, I'd love to keep Drew Moss, young guy, UDFA guy you believe can be something one day, or at least, be a quality backup for you in the future. But I do think San Francisco is valuing now, really, and trying to say, if we can have Colby slide back into our backup guard spot, Moss really becomes kind of a luxury. And I don't even think Drew Moss probably made the roster anyways had Burford been healthy. So maybe I'm wrong there. I think there's potential arguments to be made that Moss has higher potential than Burford and company. But that to me does give me hope that either Barch or Burford comes back on Sunday and probably slides Colby back to being the backup and maybe making Moss's loss kind of irrelevant when it's all said and done.
Yeah, maybe Moss is just a low-level player. Ricky Pearsall, his PCL injury, Lynch said this morning, it's not there yet. And, this is just another one of these injuries that lingers. This guy's been out for a while now. Are you at a point now where you're like, you know what, Ricky Pearsall is having a hard time staying healthy. He's having a hard time staying on the field. And, if you're going to be a slot receiver and play in the middle of the field, durability is a big part of the equation. And does he have the durability to play in the middle of the field and take all those hits? I questioned it on draft day, and I question it more today.
Yeah, that's a tricky thing because Pearsall played 12 plus games. So basically the entire season, his last 3 years in college, that at Arizona State, and then the last couple of years at Florida. So his health really wasn't a problem at the collegiate level. And I don't think that his build or his size is really a problem. I think obviously last year there were some unfortunate events that happened and everything that kind of caused him to miss more time. So I can erase that injury, if you want to call it that, off the table and say there's no one's fault. You didn't play football. That's not what happened. But there have been some OTA injuries. There has been some training camp issues with him. But if I'm correct, I think he hurt his knee making a catch and then slammed it on the ground,
right,
falling out of bounds. And I think it's not just a PCL injury. It's a PCL injury and a deep knee bruise, which he said there was some instability there at that point in time. Like, I'm giving my number one wide receiver as much time as he needs. I'm not going to go as far as to say he can't stay healthy. I think there's been some unforeseen circumstances with him, but according to Matt Mayoko, he's kind of on track to come back in a week's time. So it does seem like that will be behind him at least maybe in 2 Sundays worth of time.
Well, that's going to be big. That is going to be big. They have to get these receivers back. Now, how about Juwan Jennings? What do you make of Jennings? We asked, there was some talk earlier this week that the Niners are entertaining trade offers for Jennings. And then we asked Shanahan about it. And he's like, I'd be really, really surprised if JJ's not on this team throughout the rest of this year. So what do you make? Do you think the national guys got it wrong? Or do you think Shanahan is making it seem like nothing to see here, but in reality, they've come close to trading him and are at least considering it and discussing it? What do you think's true?
Well, I think the Niners are open to trading anybody. And I think that there are certainly pros and cons to trading Juwan Jennings this year. If it was me, I'd be open to it. I think that, if you can package it for something or just realize that Juwan Jennings is not going to come back next season. This is his last year in San Francisco, most likely. And the way he's played, has that been good enough, or is a team willing to pay him enough to warrant a compensation pick in, a couple of years' time, whenever that comes around for them? Or is trading him now worth it? And can you afford with the injuries you have to the wide receiver core and maybe no Pearsall for a while? Who knows? Hopefully it's against the Rams in 2 weeks' time. Or maybe Ayuk comes back, and it really does make you feel like that Juwan Jennings is somewhat redundant with Demarcus Robinson, who's under contract for 2 years, and Kendrick Bourne. I love Juwan Jennings. I wish he was a 49er for a long time, but I think the Niners should really weigh the value of him now because it's kind of going down as the games go by. He's probably been a net negative for them throughout the entire year. The way he plays, obviously, you want, but you can replace Juwan Jennings. He was a 7th-round draft pick. You can find guys like him, big slot receivers like him, and I think San Francisco's kind of already crafted their receiver room to be viable without him as the years progress. So I would try to trade him, or at least entertain the idea, but I don't think San Francisco will. I don't think he's probably going to get you more than maybe a 6th-round draft pick now, which is San Francisco. They're saying we have the injuries. If Purdy comes back and Pearsall's back, Juwan Jennings' life and probably value gets higher for us than elsewhere, but I'd at least open the conversation for sure.
It's one of those things, they love him, they want to keep him, but you also know they're not going to pay him. So it's like, if you can get somebody to give you something for him, you probably ought to take it. All right, let's take a quick timeout and tell people 49er football season is presented by Sleeper, the fastest growing fantasy platform in the world. It's a one-stop shop. You get blazing fast news, real-time stats, group chats, season-long leagues, and of course, Sleeper picks for daily fantasy. Use promo code Larry, Larry, and Sleeper will match your first deposit up to $100. Links in the description, terms and conditions to apply. And thanks to Sleeper for being a proud sponsor of the Krug Show. All right, one of the things I want to go through here, our good friend Matt Barrows, who does a great job covering the 49ers for The Athletic, him and Vic Tafer, who also writes for The Athletic and covers the Niners, have an interesting article out right now. Are the 49ers still looking for an edge rusher? 5 deals that make sense as the deadline nears. So let's take a look at these 5 trades, and you tell me which is your favorite. Which is your favorite deal? All right, the first one. Okay, and these are deals they cooked up, and these guys know what they're talking about, so we'll just play with it. First deal is a Niners trading a 4th-round draft choice to the Atlanta Falcons for ex-Penn State star defensive end Arnold Ebiketie. Ebiketie's interesting. He's got a lot of talent for sure. He's a little bit of a smaller guy. He's a 250-pound player. And he's an edge rusher. He's 250 pounds. He had 6 sacks in each of the last 2 seasons. He's been moved to the side in Atlanta in favor of the rookies, right? They drafted Jalen Walker. They drafted James Pierce Jr. out of Tennessee. And they basically said, Ebiketie, we don't need you. But he's really uber athletic. And he'd be a solid rusher. 4th-round pick for Arnold Ebiketie. Okay, that's the first one. Okay, think that one over. Okay, the second trade. The second trade is trading Jair Brown for a day 3 pick. Lynch.
Do it now. Do that one right now.
You're not a Jair guy. Lynch said, hey, look, we like where we're at safety. We got 4 guys who we think can start. Jason Pinnock, Marquise Siegel, Malik Mustafa, and Jair Brown. Brown is the guy they're playing right now. On one hand, he had the big hit on Woody Marks on 3rd down that forced a field goal. And he was one of the very few Niner defenders that actually made a play in the backfield. So it's I want to see more of that. But on the other hand, he also got burned a couple times in coverage and sometimes a little slow to react. Seems like he's very challenged in coverage. Tell me what you think. You're not a Jair Brown fan? I mean, the Niners had him. He was good as a rookie under Steve Wilkes. A lot of people are send him back to the Jets. He can go play for Steve Wilkes again. But
I
like Jair Brown as a guy. I think he's a solid prospect as well. I don't think I would trade him for a day 3 pick.
It depends on what round that day 3 pick is in. It could be round 4, which probably isn't, or round 5, and maybe we're having a whole different conversation. But I just think it really isn't a Jair Brown problem. It's more of a Niners safety archetype problem. They like these guys that can play in the box, are great run defenders, but they can't cover for crap. And Mustafa can, but he's off an injury, so it looks worse than it should be as the weeks progress. But they kind of have the exact same guy there. Pinnock and Jair Brown, very similar players, good run defenders, or at least they should be. Playmakers, have a knack for the football, but are just kind of a liability in coverage. Now, the game against the Houston Texans wasn't all Jair Brown's fault, but I think San Francisco really misses Jimmy Ward or a player like him to have, like, you can have that playmaker in the box, this kind of ball hawk. He can get you fumbles, great tackler, good run defender, Hufanga, your Mustafas, your Jair Browns, as long as you have the guy next to them that can cover well. And right now, San Francisco has Mustafa and Brown, Pinnock, and Siegel. None of those guys can cover right now very well, and they're all that knack for the football playmaker guy, and you have two of those guys, you're going to get burnt over the top a ton. So it really isn't a Jair Brown issue, but I just think there's a redundancy in the room. But to maybe your credit, Larry, he is relatively cheap under contract for the next 2 years and probably doesn't make too much sense to trade. But if someone came with a 5th-round draft pick or a 4th-round draft pick, I wouldn't mind San Francisco having 5 4th-round draft picks next year at all.
That's right. They got 4 right now. So that's a trade. So, okay. So that's the first trade is Ebiketie for a 4th. The second trade is Jair Brown for a day 3 pick. The third trade is Isaac Guerendo. In this one, they have Isaac Guerendo going to the Dolphins for Matthew Judon. Now they're saying, hey, look, Bradley Chubb would be great. But the problem is the incentives and the bonuses written back into the contract for snaps played and sacks would probably take him and make him prohibitive cost-wise. And then Jalen Phillips is 3 years younger than Chubb. But, he's also a free agent at the end of the year. And the last thing they want to do, and he's probably going to cost you a high pick. So that leaves the Niners with Judon, who's 33. He doesn't have a sack this season. He had 15.5 for the Patriots, though, as recently as 2022. He says, give him 20 snaps a game and hope something clicks. What do you think? There's Guerendo to the Dolphins for Matthew Judon. Then there's Guerendo to the Titans for Arden Key.
Okay.
And then the last one is trade for a Jets edge rusher. And they're suggesting either Jermaine Johnson, Michael Clemens, Will McDonald. I think Clemens, they're suggesting that Clemens would probably be the easier guy to get.
Yeah.
They don't even list Will McDonald. They just list Jermaine Johnson and Michael Clemens. So trade for a Michael Clemens from the Jets, trade Guerendo to the Titans for Arden Key, trade Guerendo to the Dolphins for Matthew Judon, trade Jair Brown for a day 3 pick, or trade a 4th-round pick for Arnold Ebiketie. What do you want to do? You like any of those? You like any of those?
Guerendo's kind of buried under the entire depth chart. I mean, if you can go get Arden Key, I wouldn't hate that. Obviously, it's a 1-year rental, but I think if you want to maximize this year, that's probably the move to make. I don't know what's more concerning, though, the fact that Guerendo isn't getting snaps and isn't on kick returns anymore, or the fact that Jordan James can't jump the guy who isn't getting snaps at all on the depth chart. I don't know what's more concerning there. I don't love Matthew Judon at all. I think he's washed. He was really bad with the Falcons last year. So far this year in 7 games and 81 pass rushing snaps, only a 4.2% or a 3.3% pass rush win rate. Don't love that. I would have rather be inclined to obviously go pay for a Jermaine Johnson, but in a world where you're kind of bargain bin shopping, and really, if you can get Arden Key for Guerendo, that feels like the best kind of boom for your buck there. Ebiketie's interesting, but I think the value-wise, a 4th-round draft pick for a guy under contract for 1 more year, I would love that. Key's here for a rental. Grendo's kind of a waste of space currently. I think that makes the most sense for San Francisco. But obviously, the major trade to make, I think, would go get Jermaine Johnson or somebody like that. But of the trades you listed, I think the Key for Grendo swap makes the most sense for both teams. The Titans might trade Pollard, might trade Tajay Spears if they want to do that. Grendo can maybe get some snaps for them. So might be a win-win there for the Tennessee Titans and San Francisco 49ers.
That the Tajay Spears is an interesting name. One, because I do think the 49ers would be well served to have three guys that could run the ball.
Yeah.
But Garendo can't do it. And they don't believe in Garendo, and they've lost confidence in Garendo. And Garendo now has more value in trade than he really does in actuality because he can't be trusted. If you could somehow make a trade where you move Garendo in a late day 3 pick, around 6 or 7, or even a pick in 27, and you could get, an Arden Key would be great, but Tajay Spears would be great. Another runner that has a little bit more speed. I think that really could help the 49ers quite a bit, to be honest, because I think they, what is Jordan James? I don't know. I mean, is Brian Robinson a real fit? I don't know. I mean, in some ways, they're a running football team with a questionable offensive line and outside of McCaffrey, maybe questionable runners. So Garendo to me is needs to be moved. He needs a change of scenery. And that one, to me, if I could get Tajay Spears or Arden Key out of Tennessee, I would. Now, if I could move a 7th round pick or, some real late day 3 draft capital, I'd take Michael Clemens away from the Jets. Now, we've talked a lot about Will McDonald and Jermaine Johnson. Michael Clemens played at Texas A&M. He's 6'4", 270. He's big. He's a big, strong, edge-setting defensive end who I think, has some good football ahead of him. I don't think he's played his best football. Now, if Saleh believes in him, he might be the kind of guy that can unearth something in Michael Clemens. Clemens plays very hard. He has a tremendous motor, and Saleh knows all about him. He's a little bit of a wild man, but man, I really think he could do a nice job in a rotation. The way that Jordan Willis did, the way that Amenahue did. I think you put Michael Clemens and Keon White and, Clee Farrell. I think that might be enough to help the 49ers get over the top. So that's how I would see those trades. Now, let's talk a little bit about this matchup on Sunday. The 49ers have a statistical edge in this game, and that is that the New York Giants' run defense is just poor.
Yeah, they're
30th in the NFL against the run right now. Their yards per carry allowed, they're dead last. Their EPA per rush allowed, they're dead last. Their success rate allowed, they're dead last. I mean, Shane Bowen probably should be fired. You have Dexter Lawrence, Kayvon Thibodeaux, Abdul Carter, and you're this bad defensively. Shane Bowen was brought over from Tennessee to be like their defensive savior. But to me, it seems like the game plan this week is real basic. Run the heck out of the ball against the New York Giants because they've got the kind of defensive line that if you are forced to pass, they could end your season and knock out your quarterback and really ruin your day. But if you can focus on running the ball, you might be able to gut them like a fish. I mean, Philly ran for 8.4 a carry. Saquon Barkley ran 14 times for 150 yards, almost 11 yards a carry. Then he left the game. In came Tank Bigsby, and Bigsby went for 11.6 a carry, 9 carries for 104 yards for Bigsby, who's hardly a star. So are the 49ers going to be able to run the ball? I mean, really, if you said to me what's surprising, it's that the Niners haven't been able to run the ball. And then last week, they couldn't stop Woody Marks. This week, they miss out on Cam Scatterbo, but they get Ty Tracy, who's a hell of a receiver, and Devin Singletary, who once upon a time was decent.
Yeah.
Are the Niners going to be able to stop New York's run? And are the Niners going to be able to dominate New York's defense by running the ball? Or are we going to be surprised and they're going to struggle to run it and to stop the run? How do you see it?
Well, I think this game's going to be close. I don't think it's going to be a blowout. I think it'll be a one-score game. Whoever wins or loses, I think San Francisco does hold the edge, though, especially on the ground. You mentioned how bad this team, the Giants' run defense is. Yeah, it's terrible, right? 5.7 yards per carry, did last in football, like you said. But on top of that, their two starting linebackers have a 14 and 26% missed tackle rate. Among starters, that is the third and eighth worst in football. So they aren't good in run defense. The linebackers don't tackle well. There really is no excuse for why Christian McCaffrey shouldn't touch the football 30 times in this game. Bless you and bless you again. It was almost inexcusable for CMC to only touch the football 12 times against the Houston Texans. That number should be 18 carries and 6 receptions against the Giants on Sunday. And I looked into the numbers because San Francisco found running success against the Falcons in a gap running scheme between the tackles, inside zone stuff. The Giants so far this year are allowing 50 yards per game in between the tackles and in a gap zone scheme. So there should be some success on the ground for San Francisco, or at least from Christian McCaffrey. Now, the Niners' run defense, on the other hand, I think will have some trouble, but I think a lot of their issues last Sunday wasn't the personnel. I think it was being impatient, kind of, leaving your zones, leaving your gaps, kind of leaving your lanes, if you will. And I think maybe having a more patient, if you will, Kayvon Bethune, and hopefully D. Winters plays on Sunday. If he doesn't, maybe it's Curtis Robinson, Nick Martin, and maybe there is some problems there. But I am at least expecting some sort of bounce back. I don't think the Giants' rushing attack is as dangerous, at least from Tyrone Tracy. That said, I think a bigger concern is the read option with Jaxson Dart. That, to me, is a bigger concern.
Let's talk about Dart for a second. We'll finish up on Dart. I mean, he's playing well. He's kind of a guy right now, though, that doesn't really read coverage. He just kind of takes off and runs.
Yeah.
So he drops back to pass. He's looking to run. If he doesn't see what he likes, he takes off. This makes him very challenging for the 49ers to defend. And, Salah's like, man, they really got something here. They got a keeper in this kid. He's a gamer. He's a this, he's a that. They really like him. They're talking him up. What do you think? I mean, are the Niners going to be able to stop, his rushes, or do you think that he burns them? I mean, one of the things that was so bothersome last week is that the Niners got dominated in the time of possession. And it was just that they couldn't get off the field on third down. And it's like, is this going to be life without Bosa and Warner and Huff? And Lynch was asked about it this morning. He's like, no, we're better than that. We had too many busted plays. We're going to be better. But to me, Jaxson Dart's mobility is a wrinkle in this game that the 49er defense is going to have to account for.
I would agree. I think one area that I think should at least be somewhat cleaned up is tackling. The Niners were absolutely terrible at tackling against the Houston Texans, and that I think would have made a big difference. Maybe not in the outcome, but how the game ended overall, and maybe giving San Francisco's offense a chance down the stretch of the game. The Niners had the Texans on third and longs multiple times. I think they had them on 3rd and 6 at least 7 times in that game, and they lost it every single time. So there are examples of the Niners defense being in a good position to hold the Texans offense to maybe a punt or whatnot, or a field goal, but just blowing it on third down. So if they can do that, I think it's a big win for San Francisco. But I also think Jaxson Dart is a quarterback, unlike Stroud in the Houston Texans, that will give away the game. He's played 7 games so far, and in those 7 games, 3 interceptions, 2 fumbles, and 7 turnover-worthy plays. And their offense goes from number 6 in football in the first quarter all the way down to 17, 20, and 21 as the game goes on. So I think really the biggest key to the game for San Francisco's young and banged up defense is to hopefully kind of bend, don't break, or at least brave the first quarter push the Giants are going to give them, because they were terrible against the Houston Texans. You can get demoralized really quickly on the road if the Giants come out thriving and kind of gashing you, and they can get ugly quickly. But if you can brave that and kind of, brace for it and hold them to maybe 10 points or 13 points in the first quarter, you're going to be in a good spot to win this football game.
I think you have to win the time of possession. You have to be able to run the ball. And then you just can't let Jaxson Dart turn broken plays into points.
Sure.
That to me is a big part in this game. You got to corral him. You got to keep him contained. All right. We are time for our sponsorship with Habas Law. They're at 1-800-INJURED. Today's show is sponsored by Habas Law. For more than 40 years, Omar Habas and his son Tarek have been standing up for people right here in Northern California. They're fierce, relentless PI attorneys. They don't back down until justice is done. So if you need someone in your corner, call the firm the insurance companies hope you never call, and that's Habas Law. They will fight to make it right. Visit them on the web at habaslaw.com, HABBAS law.com, 1-800-INJURED. They will fight to make it right. And we're also going to put this on the board. Courtesy of Habas Law, they've got a whole cool event coming up where they are sponsoring the San Jose State game against Hawaii. And so the link's in the description. If you would like tickets to this game, just tell us that you want them. The links are in the description. You can sign up and fill out the form. It's right there. San Jose against Hawaii, November 1st, 7:30, Spartan Stadium in the South Bay. Courtesy of Habas Law. Habas Law is the presenting sponsor for this game. So if you want to go check out college football, and San Jose State and Hawaii should be a lot of fun. I love college football. I went to Cal Duke a few weeks ago, and I always love to go to college football. To me, it's great environment. It's great family entertainment. It's good football, and I think it's a good atmosphere. So check out San Jose State and Hawaii. The link's in the description. November 1st, 7:30, San Jose Spartan Stadium at CEFCU Stadium is the name of it now. But it is Habas Law is the presenting sponsor. San Jose State and Hawaii. If you want to see it, see the game, sign up. The link's in the description. And thanks to Habas Law for being a proud sponsor of the Krug Show. And thanks to Habas Law for being part of our extravaganza. All right, let's finish up. Let's get a prediction on this thing. What do you predict is going to happen Sunday at MetLife? Some of these Niner games recently have been difficult to predict. 2 weeks ago, I thought they were going to get crushed by Atlanta, and they showed out and they beat them. This last week, I thought, you know what? This Houston team looked horrible on offense, but the spread went from Houston to 1.5 to 2.5 to 3.5. And sure enough, I should have listened to the odds makers because Houston looked like they were thoroughly the better team. Who do you like this week? What do you envision on Sunday?
Yeah, I think the Niners are going to win. I just trust their coaching staff better. I think that they played undisciplined against the Houston Texans, and I think that performance is rather unacceptable for what this team is capable of. They're young, they're unproven. They have maybe some guys playing out of position, but I think they're going to be a more well-focused team, if you will, on Sunday against the Giants. The Giants are a scrappy team, though. They're young. They want to smack in the mouth early and hopefully hold on late. But I think San Francisco wins 24-17. It'll be another test, a one-score game. I think San Francisco does find a way to feed CMC a ton and hopefully finds some success on the ground, which will hopefully lead them to a win. I also think that Mac Jones, who wasn't bad against the Texans, I do think that he will rekindle his love for throwing checkdowns to Christian McCaffrey on Sunday, and hopefully with George Kittle as well. This Giants secondary is not great. Cordell Flott may not play. Paulson Adebo may not play either, leaving Deion Banks and Andrew Phillips out there, and those guys are terrible right now in coverage. So this Giants defense is filled with holes, and San Francisco hopefully can do what it takes to gash them continually. I think the offense bounces back. 24-17 is my score prediction. You're muted, by the way.
Storm, and then I muted myself and I forgot to unmute. All right. I what I see is in this game, I see this game, it's the same thing I was talking about in that Houston game. If the Niners play soft coverage, they will lose this game. They don't have a lot of rush. We know that.
Yeah.
They can't play soft coverage. The Giants don't have good receivers, but guess what? Neither did the Texans. Xavier Hutchinson, Jalen Noel, and Jaden Higgins and Dalton Schultz was hardly like, oh my God, that's hardly Air Coryell, and now you've got this team. This Giants team's got Wan'Dale Robinson, who's a decent, small, liked him at Kentucky. He's a good player. They've got Darius Slayton. They've got Bo Collins, Jalen Hyatt, who wants to be traded. Theo Johnson, the former Penn State tight end. So Wandale, so not great receivers. But
Right.
if the 49ers play soft coverage like they did against Houston and allow Jaxson Dart to do what CJ Stroud did, which was to sit back, play pitch and catch easily with his receivers and generate a real smooth, easy to get rhythm, then the Giants will do just enough on offense to score points, and the Niners will fall behind. And Brian Burns and Kayvon Thibodeaux and Abdul Carter will hunt Mac Jones in the second half, and the Giants will win the game. I'm not banking on that, though. To me, the biggest disappointment last week was that Demo Lenore, Upton Stout, and Renardo Green are better players than the Texan receivers, and they're better athletes. And they played off of them like those guys were burners, like they were all Tyreek Hill in their prime, and the Niners corners were all slow. The Niners had the physical advantage on Houston and still sat in this really soft off coverage. If it happens again, they're going to lose again.
Yeah.
So that's really what it's about. The rush will be what it's going to be. It's not going to be great, but Saleh will blitz about 35% of the time. He'll have some exotics. They'll figure out a way to put a little bit of pressure. It won't be a lot, but it'll be a little. But ultimately, it's about, do the Niner DBs challenge these Giant receivers and force Dart to throw it over their head? And if Dart does throw it over their head and connects, they'll win. But I think if the Niners, come out real aggressive on their coverage, they could snuff out those receivers, shut down Tyrone Tracy, have some long methodical drives of their own, and leave there with like a 27-6 kind of a route. So I think that's possible. I'll say 27-13. I'll give the Giants a touchdown. But I'll say 27-13 49ers. But if the coverage is soft, I could really see that being the opposite. I could see the Giants beating the Niners 27-13 if the Niners coverage is soft and they just allow Dart to get into a rhythm. If you're watching this game at any point on Sunday and Jaxson Dart's in like a really good rhythm, the Niners are cooked.
Well, I think the one thing we learned is if you're going to blitz, don't play soft off zone coverage. Play some press.
Thank you.
Probably the answer to the question.
Thank you. Exactly. If you're going to speed up the quarterback, the one thing I remember about I'm not saying that Talanoa Hufanga was a Hall of Famer. He's not.
Right.
I mean, he had the Palomalu hair, but he ain't Palomalu. Palomalu ran in the 4.3s. This guy runs in the 4.7s. But when he was here, the Niners' rush and coverage were tied together. So if they sped up a quarterback and the ball was forced out early, guess what? Huff was arriving at the receiver as the ball was arriving, and he would either pick it off or knock it down or contest it. That's playing on time. The 49ers are speeding up quarterbacks, and they're playing 10, 12 yards off. And you can't rattle a quarterback if you speed him up and he throws it to wide open receivers 10 yards off, 10 yards down the field. So they're going to have to, the coverage, whether they blitz or not, whether they sit rush 3 or 4 or 5 or 6, they're going to have to be tighter in coverage and take their chances. You got to roll the dice. You got to play tight coverage. And if they beat you, they beat you. If they beat you up top, beat you over the top, then they beat you over the top. But you can't sit back in a soft zone. Let them complete passes all day long, dominate the time of possession like Houston did, and just gut you. And that's really what happened. They got gutted last week because the coverage was so soft. I mean, it was the worst of all worlds. They gave up chunk plays of 50 yards, 40 yards, 35 yards, and then they also gave up long extended drives. I mean, that is your recipe to lose against anybody in the NFL. You give up chunk plays and long extended drives, you're going to lose.
Yeah, the Niners took a page out of the Rams playbook and utilized the exact same defense the Rams used against San Francisco. It's like, it's not going to work that way. And I think that I think they've learned their lesson. I think that Saleh coming to the podium and kind of being honest about it, saying like, that wasn't great on my end, I had to be better. I think that's a good indication that they're going to hopefully right the ship on Sunday. And I think this is a must-win game for a lot of reasons, but I think playoffs for sure, being 6-3, going into a game against the Rams in Week 10 matters a lot. You fell from first place to third place in your own division. You're now the 7th seed in the wild card race. And if you also win, you maybe make this front office feel like they can make a trade to go get somebody else out there. So it is a must-win game on multiple fronts for San Francisco, because if you lose, there's a pretty good chance you're 5-5 come week 11, which is not where you want to be, with maybe a returning Purdy, Pearsall, and Ayuk down the stretch. Might change a lot of things for San Francisco.
We'll hit our supers, and then we've got one last point, and then we'll bolt for the door. This one from Mitchell Ness, not a super, but he has this one. He says, Larry knows I was right about wide receiver Demarcus Robinson all the time. He was hyping. I kept trying to tell him he was below mid. Well, today, Mitchell and Ness, you're right. But I actually don't think that's going to continue. I think Demarcus Robinson is underutilized. I think Demarcus Robinson has a very significant role on this team. And I think before the end of the year, if the 49ers do anything this year, he's going to be a big part of it. What Demarcus Robinson is really great at, and what he adds to the Niners that they don't have, is Demarcus Robinson is a very, very good red zone receiver. Why? Because he's really good at running all these little rub routes and pick plays and all these little, free yourself up inside the red zone. He's really good at setting up corners. I'm going to be over here, but at the last second, I'm going to move over there. He's very crafty, and he's really good at the pick routes and the rub routes and the goal line stuff and the red zone stuff. And they have struggled badly in the past to score touchdowns in the red zone. I think when the Niners get it rolling, when they get Purdy back in, when they get a little momentum going, they get a little healthier, I think you're going to see Demarcus Robinson have a role, and it's going to be that of a red zone threat. And I think you're going to see him have a nice little second half of the year where he scores 5 or 6 red zone touchdowns and really changes the narrative. I agree with you, Mitchell and Ness, that so far, Demarcus Robinson, D-Rob as they call him, was awesome this summer and hasn't done absolutely anything really since, because he got suspended. Now he's out of rhythm, but he averaged like 16.6 yards per catch last year. He makes catches down the field. He sets up corners, and he's really good in the red zone. Eventually, they're going to need that, and I think eventually he's going to be a major player for them. But right now, it does look like I'm the only one who realizes he's good in the red zone. I mean, right now, you would swear that the Niners have no idea that he's good in the red zone, because they don't seem to. You know what I mean? They don't seem to feature him in the red zone. He's not always on the field in the red zone. And yet that's what I think that's what he's better at than all the other receivers they have. So we'll see. But right now, I'm with you, Mitchell and Ness, but I think he's going to show something. So I'll hedge on that. Ernberg in the house has this one. He says, Giants 24-13. The season's a wrap. Injuries are a bitch. Well, I could see it. If the Niners can't cover, it's going to be 24-13 Giants, and we're going to be sitting there talking about what happened. Stefan says, wouldn't be surprised if the first rounder this year is a receiver or a D lineman, knowing this team. Thoughts on trading for Bitonio or Teller for O-line help? I like Bitonio. He played at Nevada. He's kind of a tough ass. I don't think, to me, if the only offensive lineman I would consider trading for would be like a Jackson Powers Johnson. It would have to be somebody who's young, who, for whatever reason, is available. That, kind of like when the Niners got Laken Tomlinson for a 5th-round pick from Detroit. He was a 1st-round pick out of Duke. It hadn't worked out, but the Niners saw something there and said, hey, let's get him. And he's still in the league years later. If you could get Jackson Powers Johnson, and, somebody said he's got concussion issues. If he doesn't have concussion issues and you feel like he could be healthy, I mean, you're talking about a 330-pound center who's pretty strong, and I think he would be a real nice piece. So, but I don't see them trading for a veteran offensive lineman. I think they're going to try to do it in-house. I'm not sure that I would, but I think that's what they're going to try to do. All right, the final thought before we bolt for the door. This was an amazing headline that I saw right before we started. Hot NFL rumor. What do you think of this? According to reports, first of all, there's been 8 trades thus far in October. Adam Schefter is predicting there'll be 5 more before the deadline on November the 4th, which at this point is just, 5 days away. This is the hot NFL rumor that the Philadelphia Eagles may offer the Cleveland Browns 3 first-round picks for Myles Garrett. Wow. Wow.
Crazy. It's crazy.
Which would you rather have? The 3 first-round picks from the Eagles or Myles Garrett from the Browns? Who's winning that trade?
Oh, by far, Philadelphia. They get to maximize their window. He's under contract for the next 3 or 4 or 5 seasons. He's aging. He's older, but he had 5 sacks last weekend. He's not slowing down by any means. And the Browns are
3 number ones.
Yeah, but the Browns have had 3 first-round draft picks in 1 year, and they botched every single one of them. So it's not as if those are promised. And I just don't trust the Browns regime, if you will, and their GM. They had a good draft class this year, but it's the Browns. Those are late first-round draft picks anyway. So it's like you're picking number 1 and number 32 every single year. Yeah, I mean, good job. It's second-round draft pick basically. So if you're Philadelphia, you do it immediately. Whatever it takes, go get Myles Garrett and have the best defensive line for not 1 year, but 5 years. Yeah, I'd do it in a heartbeat.
It's a lot of number ones, man. 3 number ones is a lot. That's a lot.
Yeah.
I guess if I really felt I could get a Super Bowl out of it, I would do it. And I think if I was them, I'd look at the NFC right now and I'd say, hey, look, if I can do this, I'm probably going to the Super Bowl. Every time your team goes to the Super Bowl, by the way, the value of the franchise skyrockets and your owner loves you. So even if you wind up trading picks, you've increased the value of the franchise by $185 million. Something tells me your owner is going to like you if you do that. So I don't know. I think I'm a draft pick guy. I think I'd rather have the 3 number ones than Garrett, but I understand why people would say no. Give me Garrett. Ernberg says trade the first pick for next year. It's going to be a Mikkel type pick anyways. There you go. So we got a vote there from the guy saying he doesn't like Mikkel. What do you think of Mikkel, by the way? Mikkel, he's not an edge rusher.
Right.
But he's a versatile interior rusher. They have a lot of value. Here's my prediction for him. If you ever want him to be Nick Bosa, you're high. It's not happening. It's not going to happen. But if you're okay with, finding another edge rusher somewhere else, I think there's a chance that if you put a lot of talent on that defensive line around Mikkel, that Mikkel in a mix with a lot of other guys could just be a house on fire as an interior rusher who's just a mismatch, way too fast, way too quick for the guards. So I like him on the team. I like him as part of the group, but if you're ever asking him to be like a double-digit sack guy off the edge, no.
Yeah, it's not him. He's not a pass rusher or a pure pass rusher. He's a long arm, strong, lengthy interior guy that can play the outside and set a hard edge for you. And I think, we saw exactly what you're talking about when the year started. Bryce Huff on one end as a third down guy, Bosa on the other, and Mikell looked awesome the first 4 games of the season. And all of a sudden, Bosa gets hurt, and now Huff is out, and things kind of crater. So, Mikell will free up guys with double teams and on stunts. That's his role. He is the Eric Armstead of the defense if you want to utilize a former player that was in San Francisco. But I like him a ton. I think he's going to be good for a while in San Francisco if he's healthy. But he is never going to be the one. In fact, sometimes probably not going to be the 2. But he's a really valuable piece to your defensive line, and hopefully he can free up guys on the exterior like Huff. Maybe it is somebody else they acquire, and hopefully Nick Bosa as the years go on.
I think he's going to put on 10, 12 pounds, grow into about 280, 285, and become a really dangerous interior pass rusher. And I think Niner fans are going to love him over time, but there's going to be some consternation. There's going to be some fretting because he's not going to pile up sacks. Yep. All right, that's going to do it for us. Tell people, Sterling, if they want to catch you and check out your content and follow you, tell them how they can get a hold of you, how they can follow you.
Yeah, you can follow me on social media at 49ers_access is the X, 49ers.access is the Instagram. You can also like and subscribe to the YouTube channel simply at 49ers Access. Shows almost every single day, podcasts every single week. We released our preview episode for the Giants and Niners matchup this Sunday. Took a deep dive into everything, how San Francisco can win, how they can lose. And all that on the audio podcasting platforms and YouTube at 49ers Access.
Hit like and subscribe on your way out the door. The links are in the description below for all of our sponsors. Thanks to all of them. Pig in a Pickle, Sleeper, of course, for sponsoring us. Of course, Habas Law, and of course, Pig in a Pickle. Check them out. Emeryville, Corte Madera. They're open 7 days a week from 11 a.m. till 8 p.m. or until they run out. We also want to thank Sharp Corners Sports Cards and Collectibles. They're at 205 Cypress Avenue down in Pacific Grove, California. The great Anthony Catania is at 831-521-5264. And we got sent to New Orleans earlier this year because of our sponsor, Claw Daddy Arcades. And he's a great follow on Instagram at Claw_Daddy_Arcades to find a location near you. For Sterling, I'm Larry. Have a great night, everybody. Peace.
Yeah, never met a man I've been scared of.